Hello everybody, it's Helen. Welcome to this week's session. As always, if you are watching live, if you want to put a hashtag live in the comments, if you're watching on replay, put a hashtag replay in the comments, that would be amazing. And if you've got any questions or any comments that you want to make, if whether you're watching live or not or on replay, absolutely put them in the comments and I will always come back to them and help you out with some answers. So this week's session is about having difficult conversations or kind of awkward conversations, something that you know, a subject matter that you might feel a little bit awkward about talking about with somebody else. And I'm talking about that obviously in terms of planning your ceremony and in the context of, there might be various different people, whether it's a family member or your partner's family or somebody else who's got a vested interest in your ceremony. And it might be because that they're contributing to it financially, so they feel that they ought to be able to have some kind of say or input into how you're organising your ceremony. It might be that somebody has their own particular expectations or thoughts about how a ceremony should be. And I think this can apply to any type of ceremony that you might be planning or any type of event. So it might be a wedding where you might have a family member who's got particular expectations of what should be said or done during a wedding ceremony. Similarly, with a naming ceremony, traditionally people have their children christened, or they have some other type of religious ceremony. And a naming ceremony isn't necessarily that well known amongst the older generation. So to them it might be a completely new concept and they're wondering, what on earth is this naming ceremony anyway? Why aren't you just getting your child christened? So there might be all kinds of reasons why other family members maybe disagree with what you want, or they feel that they don't really understand what it is that you want and why you want this type of ceremony. So I wanted really to share with you a few tips about how to go about having a conversation with that person in your life who maybe disagrees with what you're trying to achieve, because that can be a bit of a scary prospect, can't it? I think trying to have that open conversation with somebody. So how can you go about that? What can you do? I think tip number one is prepare. Absolutely prepare yourself for that conversation. Think about what it is that you want out of the conversation, and think about what you want to say, what you want to explain. How can you convey to the other person what it is that you want and desire and wish for your ceremony, and why is that important to you? Because I think that's the crux of it. That's quite a key thing, is trying to communicate and explain why it is important to you to do it the way that you want rather than the way that they want. So prepare in terms of thinking about what you want to say, and it might be that you want to write that down, because maybe you're not very good at thinking sort of off the cuff in the moment. I know that I'm not necessarily, so it always helps me to kind of make notes beforehand, or just to get my thoughts on paper, so at least I'm clear about what it is that I'm thinking, rather than it all sort of swirling around in my mind. It might be that you just want to write yourself some notes that you can just sort of prompt you whilst you're having that conversation. And actually there's nothing wrong with having that sort of notebook or a piece of paper or something in front of you while you're having that conversation, to remind you to say the things that are really key and important for what you want to convey. So that's tip number one, is preparing in that sense. Tip number two is preparing again, but this time it's about preparing what you anticipate the other person's expectations or objections are going to be. Do you know already more or less what their objections are, or what their concerns are about how you're going to do your ceremony. Because if you do, you can absolutely prepare answers to those. And again, it could be that you want to actually write down, you know, exactly word for word what your answer or what your thoughts are about that concern or objection. It might be that you just want to write some notes. I think it's really important to be able to have that justification and argument, not argument because you want to have a kind of a verbal fight with somebody, but preparing your case and understanding what their objections might be is a really good way to help prepare yourself to overcome them for the other person. So tip 1, prepare. Tip 2, prepare. Tip 3, you might be surprised to know, prepare. So in this prepare, we're talking about preparing yourself for the conversation and planning for it. So where are you going to have this conversation? Are you going to have it in your home? Are you going to have it in their home? I would suggest that both of those places are probably not the best place to have a sort of this kind of awkward, difficult conversation, because when you're on either your own territory or their territory, it's very easy for one party or the other to for it to soon escalate, the conversation to escalate into maybe an argument, and you absolutely don't want to have that. So maybe think about a neutral place that you could have this conversation. So it could be going to a cafe and having a chat over a cup of coffee. It might be going for a walk, you know, down your local, across the fields and through your local woods if you've got one, or if you go walking with this person already, you might have a favourite route. You know, get out, get some fresh air. Moving while you're talking actually is really a good way to stimulate conversation and to actually keep it flowing, rather than both sat down stationary. Walking and talking can decrease the element of confrontation if you feel there's going to be any. So a really good suggestion I would say is walking and talking. So think about where you're going to have this conversation and when are you going to have it. You know, think about when might be the best time for the other person and for you to have this conversation. You know, having it at 3:05 when you've just picked up the children from school, probably not the best time for you because your mind's going to be on other things. You know, maybe when you're around at 9 o'clock at night and thinking, yeah, I'm buzzing, I'm doing stuff, I'm busy, I could have this conversation now. Maybe that's not great for the other person because their personal circumstances mean that they go to bed quite early, or you know, at that time of night they're just not, their brain's not engaged enough to have that type of conversation. So have a little bit of a think about when you want to have that conversation, as well as where. So I absolutely acknowledge that these types of conversations can be really challenging. And it might be actually that you think, yeah, you know, I know this person really well, I know exactly what I'm going to say to them, but try not to go into it too confrontational. I think that the key is always about communication, and the second key is preparing. So preparing what you're going to say and what you want to say about your decisions, preparing for what the other person's responses might be, or anticipating what their concerns and objections are. So what kind of answers have you got to allay their fears, and preparing in terms of where and when you're going to have that conversation, so that you can really give yourself the best chance of having the best possible outcome. Because whatever ceremony it is that you're planning, you absolutely, I'm sure, do not want to be falling out with people. And at the end of the day, it is your ceremony, but it's great if you can take everybody with you on your journey. So I don't want anyone to be falling out, and that's the purpose of doing this session today, is to give you a few tips and pointers into getting the best possible results if you do need to have that challenging conversation with somebody. So my bonus tip, actually, I almost forgot to give you my bonus tip, is speak to your supplier. So if, for example, you have a celebrant, if I was your celebrant, I would be more than happy for you to come to me and say, do you know what, my mum, who, you know, really has got really set expectations about my child being christened, you know, I want them to have a naming ceremony. You're my celebrant. Can you help me? How am I going to, you know, talk to my mum about this? Now, I'm by no means a trained mediator, counsellor, or anything like that. I can't have that conversation for you, but I would be more than happy to support you in, you know, how can we talk about the naming ceremony in the context of the concerns that your mum has, and how can we talk about that naming ceremony in giving her what she expects and what she wants, whilst also giving you what you want and what you expect for your child's ceremony. And like I said, this idea of challenging and difficult conversations and how to approach them can apply to any type of ceremony you're having, and indeed pretty much anything in life where you feel it's going to be a challenging conversation. Prepare those things like we've just talked about, and you'll give yourself the best chance possible of getting a great outcome. So that's all the information that I had to share with you just now. Thank you for watching. If you would like any more information about what I do and the services I have, check out the website www.theauthenticcelebrant.co.uk. If you have any questions, as I said at the beginning, any questions or comments or thoughts at all, please do drop a comment on this video. I will absolutely check back and answer anything that I can. If you have missed any of my past lives and videos, you can see them all either on Facebook or on my Instagram page. I'm The Authentic Celebrant on both, so go and check those out. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please let me know and I'll be happy to help you. Okay, if you think this is going to be helpful to anybody else, please share this video, share any of the other videos and my pages on Instagram and Facebook. That would be great, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. See you soon. Bye.